Maddie, and you're listening to Beneath the Sandalwood Tree. Today, we're peeling back the layers of a conspiracy so deep it threatened to swallow the integrity of an entire nation's justice system, proving that even a general's shadow can't hide the truth forever. What happens when the man who is supposed to be the nation's ultimate gatekeeper of morality decides to play God with the lives of those sworn to protect him? Inspector General Ferdy Sambo wasn't just a powerful officer. He was a strategic mastermind who believed his rank made him the author of reality, right up until he orchestrated the cold-blooded execution of his own aide, Brigadier Yoshua. Sambo didn't just pull the strings of a murder, he attempted to bury the truth under a mountain of falsified reports and shattered CCTV drives, banking on the silence of the elite to protect his honor. But he made one fatal miscalculation. He underestimated the ferocity of a grieving family and the relentless memory of a son from Jambi, proving that even the most meticulously crafted lie will eventually bleed out when the world demands justice. The silence Sambo bought with his rank was deafening, but it wasn't absolute. It was a glass floor waiting for the first stone to be thrown. While the official police reports sang a rehearsed chorus of a shootout and justified defense, the American-style true crime obsession for detail took hold of the Indonesian public, and the collective intuition of millions began to scream that the math simply didn't add up. It started as a murmur on social media and exploded into a relentless digital uprising as ordinary people, mothers, students, and keyboard detectives refused to let Joshua be relegated to a footnote in a general's biography. They saw the bruises on a son's face through grainy photos shared by a desperate family and felt a visceral outrage, the realization that the law was being used as a shroud rather than a shield. This wasn't just a demand for a reinvestigation, it was a cultural mutiny led by a public that realized if a decorated soldier like Joshua could be erased in the shadows of a mansion, then no one was truly safe from the whims of the powerful. The digital mutiny forced the hand of the state, birthing a specialized task force that stripped away the general's immunity like layers of rotting silk. As these elite investigators moved past the doctored crime scenes and the rehearsed testimonies, the shootout narrative didn't just crumble, it was incinerated by the cold, hard evidence of a premeditated hunt. The team uncovered a trail of messages and movements that proved Joshua's death wasn't a sudden burst of passion, but a calculated appointment with a firing squad. They found that while Joshua was dutifully packing for the trip from Magalam, his superiors were already carving out the space for his grave, mapping out the trajectories of bullets that were never meant to be fired in self-defense. This was the moment the tragedy shifted from a messy accident to a Shakespearean betrayal. A young man who spent his final hours serving the very people who were checking the clocks, waiting for the precisely scheduled moment to end his life. The golden stars on Ferdy Sambo's shoulders finally tarnished in the humid heat of August 2022, as the man who once held the power of professional life and death was forced into the very handcuffs he had used to bind others. On August 11th, the untouchable general was officially stripped of his freedom and cast into a cell, a fall from grace that felt like a seismic shift in the soul of Indonesia. For the Huta Barat family watching from their home in Jambi, this wasn't just a legal victory. It was the first time they could breathe without the weight of Sambo's fabrications crushing their son's name. The strategic titan who had spent weeks manipulating the law found himself trapped in a cage built by his own arrogance, while the world watched the silhouette of a general vanish into the cold reality of a remand center. Yoshua, the aide-de-camp who had been treated like a pawn, had finally become the checkmate, proving that the loudest voice in the room isn't the one with the highest rank. It's the truth that refuses to stay buried. The legal trap finally snapped shut with the clinical precision of a scalpel, as the prosecution unveiled a multi-layered indictment that transformed Sambo's strategic brilliance into a roadmap for his own destruction. They didn't just come for him with a murder charge, they meticulously dismantled his empire, layering the heavy weight of Article 340, premeditated murder, atop a mountain of charges for obstruction of justice and digital crimes. While the general sat in the dock, his face a mask of fading stoicism, the courtroom echoed with the cold reality of how he had weaponized his office to delete the very life he was meant to mentor. Every paragraph of that indictment was a tribute to Joshua, reclaiming the young man's humanity from the digital graveyard Sambo had tried to build. It painted a haunting picture of a victim who was not just killed, but systematically erased, proving that in the eyes of a blind Lady Justice, the high-tech manipulation of evidence is nothing more than a neon sign pointing directly to the guilt of a man who thought he was too smart to be caught. The Jakarta South District Court became a modern-day coliseum, a place where the air hung heavy with the scent of a dying legacy and the collective breath of a nation waiting for a titan to fall. As the prosecutors stood, their voices steady and cold, they didn't just ask for a sentence, they demanded the total erasure of Sambo's liberty, calling for a life behind bars that would never see the light of another promotion or the comfort of a general's mansion. The demand for life imprisonment felt like a final, ironic echo of the life Sambo had so casually stolen from Joshua. While the cameras flashed and the public watched with bated breath, the focus remained on the boy from Jambi, who would never grow old, never marry, and never see the justice he died for. His vibrant future traded for a cold cell where the general would finally have nothing but the silence of his own thoughts and the ghost of the aide he betrayed to keep him company. The gavel didn't just fall, it struck like a lightning bolt through the stifling silence of the Jakarta South District Court, delivering a verdict that transcended the prosecutor's request and shattered the general's last illusion of invincibility. The chief judge declared that every element of premeditated murder had been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, culminating in the ultimate sentence: death. As the word echoed off the walls, the image of the stoic, star-studded commander evaporated, leaving behind only a man facing the gallows for the blood of a boy who had once called him commander with pride. For Joshua, this wasn't just a legal victory, it was a soul-deep restoration of the dignity Sambo had tried to strip away in that dingy room in Durin 3. The boy who was supposed to be a predator was finally recognized as the martyr he was, while the man who played God found himself sentenced to the very darkness he had so ruthlessly authored for his aid. But the wheels of the elite turn with a serpentine grace, and just as the shadow of the gallows loomed over the fallen general, the High Court's hand reached out to rewrite the ending of his tragedy. Where the powerful find a crack in the foundation just before the roof collapses, the appellate judges stripped away the death penalty, commuting Sambo's fate to life in the hollow silence of a prison cell. For Joshua's family, the news was a jagged blade to the heart, a reminder that in the world of the powerful, justice is often a shifting tide rather than a solid shore. The boy who had been shot, smeared, and systematically erased was now watching his killer escape the ultimate price, as the legal system chose to preserve the life of the architect, while the victim remained a silent memory in a zombie cemetery. It was a sobering, bitter realization for a watching nation that while the general's stars were gone, the ghost of his influence still whispered through the halls of power, leaving Joshua's loved ones to cling to a truth that the law had once again rendered negotiable. The legal battleground shifted to the highest peak of the nation's power, as both the general and the state prepared for one final, desperate clash within the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court. Sambo fought to claw back even a shred of his old life, while prosecutors stood as the final bulwark for a victim who had become a national symbol. For Yoshua, this wasn't just about a case file or a legal technicality. It was about whether a boy who had spent his life in service would ever truly find rest, or if his memory would be forever tethered to the whims of the elite. As the Supreme Court justices began their review, the air across Indonesia crackled with a singular, haunting question. Would the highest court in the land finally shut the door on Sambo's theater of lies? Or would the general's shadow find one last corner to hide in? The Supreme Court's final decree descended not with a whisper, but with the heavy, crushing weight of a tombstone, as the nation's highest justices looked past the general's polished appeals and saw only the hollow eyes of the man he had deleted. The court ruled that no legal gymnastics could obscure the clinical reality of the lower court's findings. The blood on the floor was the result of a plan, and the man at the top was its undeniable architect. They looked at the mountain of evidence, the scrubbed servers, the coerced whispers, the calculated trajectories, and declared that the law had not stumbled. It had simply finally caught up to a man who thought he ran faster than the truth. For Yoshua, whose life had been reduced to a series of exhibits and arguments, this was the moment his humanity was permanently etched back into the record, confirming that he wasn't just a casualty of a shootout, but the target of a cold-blooded execution that no amount of rank could ever justify. In a final, chilling stroke of the pen, the Supreme Court tore through the general's last-ditch legal fantasies, declaring his arguments as hollow and meritless as the excuses he offered on that blood-slicked floor in Durantiga. The justices rejected his appeal entirely, refusing to let a man of his stature dance through the loopholes of a system he had already tried to incinerate. As the gavel's echo died out, the reality of a life behind bars became the general's permanent shadow, a fate sealed by the very laws he once believed were merely tools for his convenience. This wasn't just a rejection of a legal motion, it was the world finally turning its back on a monster, leaving him to rot in the silence, while the memory of Yoshua, the son, the brother, the loyal protector, was finally allowed to rest in the light of the truth. The final rejection of Sambo's appeal is a haunting reminder that while the elite may possess the arrogance to rewrite the present, they can never truly own the future. It is a moral lesson carved in the wreckage of a shattered career, that no amount of stars on a shoulder can outweigh the heavy soul of a victim seeking justice from the grave. Yoshua's story is a testament to the power of a family's love and a nation's refusal to forget, proving that the light will always find a way through the thickest walls of a conspiracy. The Supreme Court's final signature wasn't just a legal formality. It was the sound of a heavy iron door slamming shut on a legacy of blood and betrayal, forever cementing the appellate court's decree into the unchangeable stone of history. The highest judges validated the life sentence, declaring it the permanent price for a general who thought he could play God. For Yoshua, the boy whose warm smile was once a constant in the halls of power, this meant his name was no longer a casualty of a cover-up, but a permanent reminder of a truth that outlived its destroyer. Samo's fate is now a cold, stagnant reality, life in a cell, far from the polished floors and the crisp uniforms, while Yoshua's memory is finally freed from the clutches of the Durantiga mansion to find peace in the soil of Jambi. This final, binding verdict stands as a chilling monument to the truth that power is a temporary crown, but justice is an eternal judge. It teaches us that while the influential can manipulate the air we breathe and the screens we watch, they cannot stop the heartbeat of a nation that demands accountability for its fallen sons. Yoshua Hutabara didn't just die, he became the catalyst for a country's awakening, proving that even a humble aide can bring a titan to his knees. In a final, blistering rebuke that echoed through the hallowed corridors of power, the Supreme Court justices didn't just sentence a man, they performed a public autopsy on a corrupted soul. The court declared that Sambo's treachery had done far more than end a life. It had carved a jagged wound into the very heart of national justice and spat on the institution he was sworn to uphold. They saw past the general's stoic mask and recognized the ultimate betrayal, a commander who used the state's own machinery to hunt a loyal son like Yoshua, a young man who had once stood at his side with nothing but devotion in his eyes. By validating the sentence, the court sent a thunderous message that the dignity of a single aide-de-camp from Jambi outweighed the collective ego of the elite, proving that when the protectors become the predators, the law will not merely punish, it will dismantle them to preserve the sanctity of the innocent. This staggering conclusion reminds us that the greatest threat to a nation isn't the criminal in the shadows, but the one wearing a badge and sitting in the light. It is a warning that once you use your power to crush the defenseless, you forfeit the right to be called a leader, leaving behind only the wreckage of a reputation and the ghost of a victim who was worth more than 1,000 generals. Yoshua's story is a triumph of truth over terror, a reminder that every life stolen in the dark eventually finds its voice in the light of the highest bench. In the final analysis, the fall of Ferdy Sambo wasn't just a tabloid sensation, it was a scorched earth revolution in the name of a boy from Jambi who was never supposed to matter. By dragging a 4-star orchestrator out of his ivory tower and into a life of permanent incarceration, the Indonesian legal system set a precedent that pulsed with the raw, uncompromising energy. The realization that the law is not a servant to the stars on a shoulder, but a shield for the soul of the common man. Yoshua's life was the heavy price paid to prove that the untouchables are a myth, and that even the most elaborate web of rank and rewired hard drives cannot withstand the collective roar of a public demanding the truth. As Sambo's legacy dissolves into a cautionary tale of hubris, Yoshua Hutabara stands immortalized, not as a victim, but as the catalyst who forced a nation to look its most powerful monsters in the eye and say, "No more." This case stands as a landmark of ironclad accountability, a warning to every titan in every high office that the moment you think you are above the law, you have already begun your descent. It teaches us that the pursuit of justice is the only thing that keeps a society from sliding into the abyss of tyranny, and that the memory of one honest man can bring down a corrupt empire. Yoshua's sacrifice has redefined the boundary between power and right, ensuring that the next time a giant tries to erase an innocent, they will remember the name of the aide who broke the general. The Supreme Court's final stroke of the pen acted as the ultimate curtain call, sealing the tomb on every ordinary legal avenue and leaving Ferdy Sambo trapped within the cold, unyielding architecture of his own making. Where the calculated maneuvers of a mastermind finally hit a dead end, the highest court ensured there were no more shadows to slip through, no more scripts to flip, and no more stars to hide behind. For Yoshua, this wasn't just a legal conclusion, it was a sacred homecoming, a moment where the son who was once treated as collateral damage was finally returned to the arms of his family's honor, his name cleared of every lie the general had tried to weave into his shroud. The process is over, the ink is dry, and while the halls of power may still whisper of the general who fell, the world will remember the aide who rose from the silence to demand a justice that not even a god of the police force could deny. This finality is a haunting testament to the truth that every road of corruption eventually hits a wall, and that no matter how high you climb, the ground of justice remains beneath you. It serves as a moral beacon, proving that a family's grief, when fueled by the truth, can dismantle a fortress of lies and change the course of a nation's history. Yoshua Hutabarat's journey has come to its rest, leaving us with a warning. Power is a privilege, not a shield, and the truth is the only legacy that survives the test of time. With the Supreme Court's final, binding refusal to entertain another word of his defense, the curtain has officially fallen on the legal theater of Ferdy Sambo, trading the gold-braided prestige of a general for the sterile, infinite silence of a life sentence. The man who once moved subordinates like chess pieces across a map of deception is now himself a permanent fixture of the state's architecture, destined to grow old within the same four walls that symbolize the justice he tried to incinerate. For Yoshua, this isn't just a verdict, it's a restoration. The aide-de-camp who was executed in the shadows of a Durintiga mansion has finally been granted the last word, his memory serving as the lock and key to his killer's cage. While the general's appeals died in a 3-2 split among the nation's highest justices, the truth of Yoshua's humanity remains whole, proving that in the ultimate game of power, the one who is erased often becomes the one who can never be forgotten. The finality of Sambo's life sentence is a sobering reminder that while the elite can manipulate the tempo of the drums, they cannot stop the music of justice from eventually reaching its crescendo. It tells us that no matter how high the rank or how deep the cover-up, there is a fundamental law of the universe that demands a balance for the blood of the innocent. Yoshua Hutabarat's legacy is now the gold standard for accountability, a story of a family from Jambi who took on a titan and won the only thing that mattered, the truth. But the scales of justice, so recently balanced, tilted once more with a calculated grace that left the public gasping for air as the spotlight shifted to the woman who stood silently at the center of the storm, Putri Chandrawathi. While the general's fate was sealed in stone, his wife, the elegant architect of the narrative that lured Yoshua to his doom, found a mercy the victim was never afforded. The Supreme Court took her initial 20-year sentence and slashed it in half, handing her a decade-long reprieve while the ghost of the age she helped destroy remains frozen in time. For the Huta Barat family, this wasn't just a reduction in years, it was a cold reminder that for the elite, even a tragedy has a discount. The woman who watched as Yoshua was led like a lamb to the slaughter will now see the sun 10 years sooner than anyone expected, leaving us to wonder if the precedent we celebrated was merely a facade for a system that still knows how to protect its own, even when their hands are stained with the blood of a loyal son. The sudden leniency shown to Putri Chandrawati serves as a chilling epilogue to this saga, proving that while a general may fall, the roots of influence run deeper and wider than we dare to imagine. It forces us to ask, is justice truly blind, or does she sometimes peek through the blindfold when the defendant is a woman of high standing? Yoshua's life was taken in an instant, but the legal battle for his dignity continues to be a war of attrition against the very people who claimed to be his protectors. But as the judicial curtains began to close, the scent of a discounted justice grew even more pungent, drifting from the mansion's inner sanctum down to the servants' quarters, where Kuat Maruf, the loyal chauffeur and household enforcer, awaited his final reckoning. In a move that mirrored the high court mercy shown to the elite, the Supreme Court took a jagged blade to his 15-year sentence, slashing it down to a mere decade because he was only a participant rather than the man pulling the trigger. While Kuat had famously chased Yoshua with a kitchen knife in Magalong and stood by as the execution unfolded in Durantiga, the law suddenly decided his role was too peripheral to warrant the full weight of his original punishment. For a public that had watched Kuat's evasive, almost mocking testimony during the trial, this reduction felt like a slap in the face to the boy from Jambi, a chilling signal that even the hired help could find a way to navigate the system's leniency, provided they were part of the general's inner circle. The discount given to Kuat Maruf adds a bitter layer to an already complicated legacy, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable reality that even when the truth is exposed, the consequences can still feel frustratingly hollow. If the driver who helped set the stage for a murder can walk free 5 years early, what does that say about the value of the life that was stolen? Yoshua's family has seen the perpetrator's sentences melt away like ice in the Jakarta sun, leaving them with nothing but a permanent, unchangeable grief. The final blow to the narrative of absolute accountability landed with the quiet rustle of a court clerk's papers as Ricky Rizal, the tactical aide who chose the silence of a conspiracy over the life of his brother-in-arms, saw his 13-year sentence evaporate into a mere 8. The Supreme Court decided that the man who had the power to stop the slaughter, who stood by as the trap was set for his fellow officer, deserved a mercy that Yoshua was never offered in that blood-soaked living room. While Yoshua was a son of Jambi whose only crime was his loyalty, Ricky was the insider who watched the clock tick down to the execution, and now he is rewarded with a path back to his life before a single decade has even passed. This systematic erosion of punishment for the general's inner circle has turned a historic victory into a haunting question of what a human life is truly worth when weighed against the technicalities of the powerful. It leaves the Huta Barat family holding a hollowed-out verdict, watching as the men and women who orchestrated their son's erasure are given the one thing Yoshua will never have, a second chance. The story of Brigadier J has become a mirror reflecting the cracks in the very foundation of justice, where the untouchable general remains in a cell, but his supporting cast finds a lighter path home. It serves as a stark reminder that while the truth can be told, the price of that truth is often negotiated in rooms where the victims' voices are never heard. Yoshua's face, frozen in time, remains the conscience of a nation that is still waiting for a justice that doesn't come with a discount for the well-connected. In the final electric turn of this Shakespearean tragedy, the spotlight fell on the man who actually pulled the trigger, yet emerged not as a villain, but as the ghost in the machine who finally broke the general's spell. Richard Eliezer, the young private who faced the barrel of a 12-year demand, walked out of the courtroom with a sentence of just 18 months, a reward for the soldier who chose the terrifying light of the truth over the comfortable darkness of a conspiracy. While the rest of the inner circle saw their discounts as mere legal favors, Eliezer's freedom was a testament to the raw power of a justice collaborator who dared to kneel before Yoshua's parents and beg for a forgiveness that the state could never grant. By August 2023, while the general began his infinite stay behind bars, the boy who fired the shots was already breathing the free air of Jakarta, proving that in a world of monsters, the only way to survive the fall of a god is to be the one who finally tells the world how he was made. The saga of Brigadier J stands as a haunting reminder that while the powerful can command our bodies, they can never truly own our consciences. Richard Eliezer's journey from executioner to whistleblower has redrawn the map of justice in Indonesia, showing us that even in the deepest shadows of a police mansion, one honest voice can trigger a landslide that buries a general. Yoshua Huta Barat is gone, but his name has become the fire that forged a new era of accountability, one where the stars on a shoulder are no longer heavy enough to crush the truth. In a ruthless display of institutional betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound, the general's machine didn't just stop at the execution. It moved to incinerate the very truth of Yoshua's existence. The dark heart of the Blue Silence, a phalanx of high-ranking officers, led by the calculated hand of Brigadier General Hendra Kurniawan, transformed into a cleanup crew for a monster. They didn't see a fallen comrade in the grain of the CCTV footage. They saw a loose thread that needed to be burned. From Hendra's 3-year fall from grace to the 10-month sentences handed to the likes of Irfan Widianto and RF Rahman Arifin, each verdict was a grim acknowledgement that these men had traded their badges for a shredder, systematically dismantling the digital ghost of Yoshua's final moments to protect a lie. For the boy from Jambi, this was the ultimate erasure, not just of his life, but of the evidence of his innocence, leaving his family to fight a war not just against a killer, but against the very walls of the palace he had died to serve. The systematic obstruction of justice by these high-ranking officials serves as a chilling testament to how easily the shield of the law can be turned into a shroud for the truth. It reminds us that when the protectors of a nation prioritize the reputation of a titan over the life of a subordinate, the entire foundation of public trust begins to crumble. Yoshua Huta Barat's story didn't just expose a murder, it unmasked a culture of impunity that thought it could edit reality itself. In the final reckoning, the saga of Brigadier J serves as a haunting manifesto on the fragility of truth in the face of absolute power. The glitter of the elite is stripped away to reveal a hollow, rotting core. The fall of Ferdi Sambo proves that no fortress of rank is high enough to block out the sun. Yoshua was more than an aide. He was a son, a brother, and ultimately a mirror held up to a nation's soul, forcing an entire institution to confront the shadows it had allowed to fester. The moral is as cold as the floor of that Duranthiga mansion. When loyalty to a person replaces loyalty to the law, justice doesn't just stumble, it becomes an accomplice. This case stands as a permanent warning that the stars on a shoulder can never outweigh the dignity of a single life, and that a commander who sacrifices his own for a lie will eventually find himself a king of nothing but a prison cell. As the ink dries on these final verdicts, the legacy of Yoshua remains a beacon for every family still fighting giants in the dark. It is a reminder that while the powerful can edit the footage and bury the files, they can never truly kill the heartbeat of the truth once the people decide to listen. This isn't just a story about a murder, it's a story about the resilience of a mother's love and a nation's refusal to be silenced by the boots of the elite. If you believe that the scales of justice must always be balanced by the weight of the innocent, please show your support. Hit the like button, share this final chapter to honor Yoshua's memory, and subscribe to Beneath the Sandalwood Tree. We want to hear your voice. Looking back at the entire saga, do you think justice was truly served, or was the system simply doing damage control? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.